Will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Years ago, I was introduced to the music of Reverend Jim Manley, a United Church of Christ minister, who in the late 70s, early 80s used his guitar and one would say homespun words to forge a pathway into what was still a pretty sacred cow mix of hymns at the time. Of course, the 60s and 70s were hot for guitars. In any group of teenagers, usually 20 people, usually one or two of them played guitars, and they played them well. And so the mix of music, contemporary music, and if one might say folk music, was very powerful, and it was clearly a memory for that, and a message as well. But contemporary church music was kind of on a shift, and other than guitar, you really didn't hear a lot, and sometimes it wasn't done well either. But as a church pastor, Jim drew from his own experiences, and though limited as any church pastor might be, he sought to speak more widely for the church and captured a corner of the early 1980s church music scene, which came to be known as contemporary, although I think that has various meanings in our today. But one song in particular comes out to my mind as we're talking about family. And it's a song that he wrote, and we've sung it here before, although even though it's not in our hymnal, it's called Part of the Family. And although it didn't make it into, it did make it into some of the hymnals that were getting rolled out at that time. But as with any hymnal, there are limitations and there are many blessings to things, and sometimes the pastor picks a clunker like I did this morning. But so it goes. And certainly would have saved that for the second or third hymn, and we would have approached it perhaps differently. But this one has a lilting chorus, and I'm going to repeat it a couple of times through my message this morning, so if you want to join in at some point, you're welcome to do that. The chorus goes, come in and sit down. You are a part of the family. We are lost and we are found, and we are a part of the family. Kind of draws you in. And the verses, there are a few different verses, and I want to share those with you and then amplify them a bit for our today. Because this was written in the early 1980s, and again, credit to Reverend James K. Manley for the words and the music. You know the reason why you came, yet no reason can explain. So share the laughter and cry and the pain, for we are a part of the family. God is with us in this place, like a mother's warm embrace. We're all forgiven by God's grace, for we are a part of the family. Over the past few years, we've been using the words invite, include, and involve, and we've been learning how important it is to offer the invitation, the warm welcome, regardless of who a person is or what a person looks like. And in our wider United Church of Christ connections and awareness, we've heard the words and we've used these words more recently. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Many, like me, grew up in the church, so I learned what I learned, that welcome meant anybody. And that welcome meant, as I grew up, that when I moved to another place, I did experience a warm welcome. I'm not sure what your experience has been, but when I moved to another place, when I moved out of my parents' house, when I went off to school, to college, and then to work beyond that, I experienced a warm welcome. I felt included and saw more deeply the willingness of the local church, and one was in a very urban setting, and one was in a much more rural setting, So there was a willingness of the church to live out that welcome, to live out that you are a part of the family. I saw the sharing of self and the power of forgiveness lived. Power of forgiveness struggled with and repeated well and repeated badly, again and again and again. But like Jim Manley's words and Jesus' teaching in the gospel, we are lost and we are found. Whoever does the will of my Father is my sister, my brother, my mother. That's pretty unique stuff in his day and time, because parents were the elders and they were to be respected, not just set aside. And Jesus isn't talking about that. But Jesus is saying it's wider. It's wider. His own family didn't fully understand his teaching and his preaching, and certainly the religious leaders didn't. But it's God's grace. And by God's grace, the example of unconditional love still stands the test of time, doesn't it? It stands the test of time and our own experience. We are a part of the family. And it's not just this family. Okay? And it's not just our family. Whether it's blood or faith, or both. But we are part of the family. Come in and sit down. You are a part of the family. We are lost and we are found, and we are a part of the family. Children and elders, middlers and teens, singles and doubles and in-betweens, strong 85ers and streetwise 16s, we are a part of the family. Greeters and shoppers, long time and new, nobody here has a claim on a pew. And whether we're many or only a few, we are a part of the family. Oh, did I emphasize something there? Gone are the days of renting pews. If there's been a deep learning for me over my life, I'd probably segment that to be the growing up years. These might be TV shows, I don't know. The growing up years. College until I married. And then my own family with children. Married with children. Oh yeah, there you go.
Was it like that?
That's another sermon. So the learning has been that families come in all shapes and sizes. And as Jim's words speak to the mix of his experience, children and middlers, teens, singles, doubles, in-betweens, elders, streetwise, whatever age, all are a part of the family. I struggled with understanding goths, punks, rappers, dweebs, nerds, jocks, whatever, valley girls, deadheads. You can come up with your own names. I'm talking from my own experience. And some of you are probably going, what is he talking about? All right. So let's go back to I found. No matter what the designation, okay? Whatever tag or tab or, a scant look you might give to somebody, I've learned that the outward visible, what you see is what you get, or what you get through, or what you have to go through to see. I found that outward visible helps you name the God-given inner person. And I believe we do understand that for whatever reason, we often craft, build, devise tough outer shells to keep people away, or we've experienced that in people that we've interacted with, because it may hurt too much to get close, or because the hurt is real in body, in mind, or spirit. And how would you understand? Jesus faced power people who just didn't get his preaching, his healing, his naming the demons, his actually saying, God's kingdom is near, or God's kingdom is here today. Are you ready? He said over and over again, you are a part of the family. You are a beloved child of God. He stretched current and long-held belief, and it grated. It caused tension. Yet he lived. He lived. We are a part of the family. And so my learning continues, and I hope yours does too. It continues in awareness and understanding and inviting conversation with folks who struggle, who may have that tough outer shell that they're not even aware of. Who struggle to get close or invite others in to even begin to change whatever it is that causes them this pain, this hurt, or this struggle. My learning has continued in the awareness and understanding to invite conversation with folks who struggle with recovery. And you may immediately just go, drugs or alcohol. The term now is substance misuse. I think it might lose a little edge there, whether you like it or not. But substances. But there's also gambling and food and sex. There's also power and money. Hoarding. You get what I'm saying? There are a lot of things from which people are wanting to recover, to get back that wholeness, get back that center of life, to get back that sense and willingness and ability to hear, you are a beloved child of God. So I'm saying, recovery at its heart is retooling, reshaping your sense of self and your connection with family and your connection with community, and I believe your connection with God. But I think we understand that Jesus' life, ministry, death, resurrection is the pattern which shows us this retooling of self in order to then, through our lives, reflect the face of God, because then we become that living example of the good news Jesus was for us. Hope, loving kindness, reaching out when no one else would, walking side by side with us, and over and over and over again, giving voice and witness to the reality that we, and in Jesus' time, his we, were often the folks on the fringes of society. We are a part of the family. Come in and sit down. We are a part of the family. We are lost and we are found. We are a part of the family. There's life to be shared in the bread and the wine. We are the branches, Christ is the vine. This is God's temple, it's not yours or mine, but we are a part of the family. There's rest for the weary and health for us all. There's a yoke that is easy and a burden that's small. So come in and worship and answer the call, for we are a part of the family. Sisters and brothers, our faith and experience has included baptismal waters and the sharing of small portions of bread and wine at a round-the-world table that has so many extensions, even though someone is eating in the kitchen, they're never by themselves. And our vine, the living Christ, and our branching out, our growing leaves, our grafting others into the wonderful tree of life, we use that image because it represents growth and life. I use the image of weaving threads into a wonderful web of faith. which does bring, it does provide, and does become a place for rest for the weary and health for all. But it's this connecting covenant that comes with a yoke. Again, an image of Jesus' day and time. It's an image that gets repeated again and again. But a yoke of oxen, if you will. You share the burden, and it works. So the yoke conveys that we share. We share with God. We share with Jesus. We share with the living Spirit. The image isn't so set that it doesn't have some flexibility, but it's in the sharing of whatever our burdens are. They are shared. And so they're diminished. They're not magically taken away, but we learn and grow to a depth of understanding that caring, compassion, humbly speaking for justice and righteousness takes a center place in the life. A life of faith that's shared, a life of faith that's revealed, a life that is of faith that's yet to be. And worship is perhaps that beginning place, but believe me, my learning, and I suspect for you too, your learning has grown to include the many places and spaces that where a beginning place, many spaces and places where I rub elbows is just the place where gospel light so often emerges. I often speak about knowing and being comfortable with your elevator conversation. What's your faith about? Tell me. Why do you do what you do? Tell me. Or when we give voice to, when we see a person who's struggling or hurt or crying or joyful. When you give a voice to, wow, you look like you're so happy. Why? Tell me about it. It opens the door, and it can open the door, and it does take time. And if we're honest, it gets very scary when you do those things. But remember what's behind that sense of the deep and abiding presence of God, the love of God, the unconditional love of God, which is grace. So the challenge, and it is just that, is to love God, love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. It all goes together. It isn't just loving God, it isn't just loving your neighbor, it isn't just loving yourself. The three weave together into that web. And why? Why pay attention to that? Because we are a part of the family. I give thanks for the words and music of Jim Manley remembered today, and pray that each of us might remember we are a part of the family. Come in and sit down. You are a part of the family. We are lost, but we are found, and we are a part